it's Tiffany and welcome back to my channel. I am back with another upcycle by Little Toe where I take old forgotten items and give them a new life. If you like sewing and DIY videos, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I am going to jump right into today's video because we are going on a mini vacation in 2 days and I have the urge to make a brand new outfit. However, I am a notoriously slow sewer, so I'm really hoping that this goes well. I have had this Zimmermann set pinned for months now, and I also have this set of thrifted curtains in my stash, and I think it's gonna work really well, so let's get started. Here is a close-up of the curtain. I have several of these square pieces that all have this beautiful eyelet trim along the border, and I also have a few of these longer pieces. Because I don't really have time to draft my own pattern for this, I'm going to be using this vintage pattern as a base for my bodice, but I am going to be modifying the neckline slightly. Here are my pattern pieces cut out, and I opted to omit the sweetheart neckline for something more straight across, and here it is sewn together. I've also gone ahead and sewn the darts in the back. To mimic the scalloped edges on the original top, I made a cardboard template, and I'm going to use that to map out the scallops on my top. I start by marking the seam allowance along the neckline of my top with an air erasable marker. Now starting from the middle point, I'm lining up the top of my template to the seam allowance, tracing out the scallops, and I'm also adjusting the template to the curve of the neckline as I go. I continue to do this along the entire neckline, and this is what it should look like when it's all traced out along the top section of my bodice. Next is the straps, and I just cut out a strip of fabric and I'm folding it right sides facing, and then I sewed this together along the length of the strap. I saw a hack to turn straps to the right side using a bobby pin, so I decided to try it out, and once I got it going, it actually worked pretty well, so I'll definitely be using this method again. Then I used tweezers to fold in one of the ends and secure that by hand sewing the opening shut. I made 4 straps and I'm just pinning them to my top. I start with the 2 in the back, and then I move on to the ones in the front, making sure that everything is evenly spaced. I'll secure these with a straight stitch, and this is what they should look like sewn on. You can also see that I've added 3 button loops along this side, and this is a close-up of what that looks like. Next, I made a lining using an old bed sheet, and I'm placing my shell piece right sides facing. I'll sew these together along this side, along the top, and down the other side. I'm not gonna lie, this was a very tedious process and it took a lot of time because I was trying really hard to be precise, but it was not as bad as cutting out all of these notches in the seam allowance, as you can tell by my very exacerbated face. But I posted about my frustrations on Instagram and someone suggested I use pinking shears for this, so I will absolutely be trying that in the future. It was all worth it though, because look how nice and neat everything looks. I'm kind of rushing through filming everything because I really want to make sure I get this done in time, but I'm going to take one of the longer panels of the curtain and I'm going to trim that down to the height that I want to use as the peplum section of my top. You can see here that I've pleated this section and I've secured my pleats with a basting stitch. Now I'm placing this right sides facing and pinning it to the bodice. I'm only pinning this to the shell layer and being careful not to accidentally pin it to the lining layer as well. I'll sew these together with a straight stitch, and this is what the top should look like at this point. Now I'm folding the peplum section up so that it's right sides facing with the shell again, and then I'm going to turn the top to the wrong side so that the peplum layer is sandwiched between the shell and lining bodice, and you can see that the wrong side of the fabric is now on the outside. Here is the shell and peplum layer that have been sewn together, and here is the lining. I'm adjusting the shell and lining so that they line up, and then starting from this end, I'll sew a straight stitch until this point, and I'll do the same on the other side, leaving a gap in the center section here. This is what it should look like sewn with this opening in the center. Now I'm going to turn the top to the right side by pulling the fabric out from the opening and being very careful when I do this so I don't accidentally rip any stitches. It always looks a little bit scary at this point, but you just have to trust the process. This is what the top should look like at this point, and you can see the opening here, which I'll hand sew closed with a blind stitch. I finished hand sewing that opening closed last night, and this is what the top looks like on, so now I'm going to move on to the pants. Since I am so short on time, I'm going to be using the pattern that I drafted for these pants because I know that I'm going to be able to sew this pretty quickly, and more importantly, I know that it already fits me well. I'm starting with the front of my pants, and you can see here that since the fabric is a little bit sheer, I did line this top section, and here is the front sewn together. Moving on to the back of the pants. I'm laying my pieces right sides facing, and again you can see that I lined the top section. Starting from this point, I'll sew together until this point, leaving the top open for the zipper. This is what it should look like at this point, and next step is to sew in the invisible zipper. This transition is always my favorite when I'm editing. Now I'm placing the front of my pants right sides facing to the back. I'll sew together along both side seams as well as the inseam, and it should look something like this. You can tell by the lighting in this clip that it was getting really dark, so I didn't film the process, but I did also sew on a waistband. So I have a small-ish dilemma because it is fully nighttime right now, but I noticed a lot of stains on the curtain as I was sewing, so I think I have no choice but to dye the outfit right now. I didn't film very much because I was rushing through this process. I still hadn't packed and our flight was really early the next morning, which if you can't tell by my face, we actually ended up missing, but we did finally make it, and all I had left to do was sew on the buttons to the top. These are the buttons that I chose, and I also wanted to do a cute little hotel outfit reveal, so here is the final outfit. I also definitely had some sort of vacation brain fog going on because I did not film any horizontal footage of this outfit, but considering I made this in 2 days, I think it turned out so cute. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I actually have a few more of these panels, and I definitely want to make a pair of matching shorts, but let me know what else I should make. I also posted more on this outfit on my Instagram, so make sure you're following me there at Little Toe. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this upcycle, and as always, thank you so much for watching.